Aloha, everyone. Michelle Melendez, blossominnerwellness.com and standtogetherhawaii.com. Also on the Voice of Kona radio show 100.5 FM. I am super excited because I am still with Jack and Margie Flynn, and they are the founders of Citizens of the American Constitution.net. So I'm going to say that again for you on the radio. Citizens of the American Constitution.net. It is a website that you absolutely should go to. They have a complete freedom school that's free. I am 10 minutes away from completing the 9 classes and super excited about that. But Jack and Margie, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Good to be here, Michelle. Good to see you.
So I'm really excited about this one because this interview is about revoking your U.S. citizenship. Now, for people who don't understand that there are 2 constitutions. Can you please first explain the 2 constitutions and then the 14th Amendment that has enslaved people?
Sure.
You can start.
Okay. Our original Constitution was written in 1787 by the founders of this country, and it was ratified in 1789. It's called the Constitution for the United States of America. In 1791, the founders created a Bill of Rights. And it was ratified in 1791. It was done before that, and it was put onto the Constitution as part and parcel of our Constitution. So the Bill of Rights is 10 amendments, and each of those amendments specifically protects a specific individual right that is inherent, meaning God-given to the people. Okay? They're very, very important because they protect our rights. And the 9th Amendment is an amendment that's very special because that one protects all of the rights that were not enumerated in the first 8, okay, for the people. So understanding that that Constitution was made to keep government under a strict, certain way of operating, limited by and through what the Constitution says. Whatever is written in the Constitution as the authorities given to government is what their authority is. If it's not written in there, then they don't have the authority to do a particular act, okay? So fast forward to 1871. There had been obviously a lot of strife in the country. We had a so-called Civil War, which we call the War of Northern Aggression, back in 1861 to 1865. And that devastated the country. It was not about slavery, but that's what the press says, but it was never about that. It was about money and power and control. During that time, it was absolute chaos for a lot of people. It was devastation. And unfortunately, a lot of people came to this country at that time who were wealthy, who happened to be communist Jews, who were what we call carpetbaggers that bought up a lot of the businesses that were destroyed by and through the so-called Civil War.
Especially down south.
They began to infiltrate because they had money and they had power and they had influence. They began to infiltrate various aspects of American life, and they now have positions everywhere. Every aspect of government, every aspect of the institutions that run this country, academia, from preschool right up through PhDs, et cetera, et cetera.
Media.
So they took advantage of this situation, and a coup occurred basically because the Congress at the time was manipulated into creating and passing the so-called Organic Act of 1871, by and through which they changed the name of our original organic Constitution to the Constitution of the United States, all uppercase. This second Constitution was intended to be sort of a corporate charter for the District of Columbia, which is the body that was supposed to be the governing apparatus for the several states. However, it's foreign to the several states. It is a separate corporation. It operates for profit, and it is really under the sway, and has been for a long time, of Great Britain and the City of London, which is the banking kingdom, so to speak, and does not operate in the best interests of the American people, and in fact has done everything to be pernicious to the rights and due process and the lives of the American people. Now that
So I want to just pause you for a second because I
Yes.
love, there's the the whole corporation, the whole these people. The Rome is for the religion, and
Yes.
England, City of London is for the money, and the DC is for the military. So these are all under one umbrella, under one people that
Yes,
are
they are.
ruling us. And so yeah,
That's
so thank you.
correct. Yeah, that's right. It's the triumvirate of evil. That's what I call it. Now, that constitution, that so-called second corporate constitution, was the beginning of corporatizing all of the other governments in this country. They took the lawful governments and they converted them without any lawful authority into quasi-governments, corporations operating under the territorial control and authority of the District of Columbia, DC. Okay. So they're municipal corporations, and they, again, operate for profit. All of our so-called governments are corporate. They have Dun and Bradstreet numbers, even down to the school boards. That's how long this profiteering has been going on against the American people.
Including all the states, all of the states.
Every state government, city, county, right down the line. As I told you, even your local boards are taking off orders from the top because they're all operating under this corporate umbrella. And that was not constitutional. The Constitution did not authorize a lawful, legitimate government of and by and for the people to become a for-profit corporation to defraud the people and to steal their funds. And that's what's been going on for a long, long time. That's been orchestrated by these same people who have been infiltrated in everything of any importance in this country. You see, that this country is kind of a linchpin because as a nation, we were unique in the world. We set up a nation that was predicated upon the individual's rights, not what was good just for society, but for the individual people. That's never happened before. It made the human man and woman superior in that they recognize the inherent rights that we all have, and that those rights are precious and should be preserved and protected. Our founders knew this. That's why they wrote the Bill of Rights. So when corporate government came into play, it slid all that to the side. And when the 14th Amendment was put together, that was a very deceptive amendment. There's some good things in it. Section 3 and 4 are very good because they hold public officials accountable to their oath. But Section 1 implies that all Americans are U.S. citizens, and there is no such thing as a U.S. citizen. We are not U.S. citizens. We are American citizens or American nationals, meaning we were born in the land called the United States of America. Okay, all of us. So as such, our rights are inherent in us, and those rights are secured in the Bill of Rights. They're guaranteed to us by and through our Constitution. And there is no authority whatsoever for any aspect of government at any level to infringe upon our rights. Our rights are precious and sacred, and we don't have any right to impose our rights on somebody else, and they don't have the right to do that to us. In other words, we're all individually, so that's what being a sovereign is, okay? And that word gets misused, but essentially that's what that means. The sovereignty of your inherent rights, the right to live, to work, to take care of yourself, to take care of your family, to do what you love, to create. Those are all our inherent rights. And it's an amazing thing that this country even came together. Yeah. But the people didn't understand how precious this was, and they didn't pay attention, and they made the mistake of trusting the people that they were putting into their respective offices, thinking that, well, they've got my back, I don't have to pay attention. Nothing could be further from the truth. We have a duty as American citizens to supervise our government. Remember, we have the authority. It's inherent in us. We're the de jure, the true government. But we delegated some of our authority to the people that we elected or appointed to run the machinery of government, the offices, the day-to-day business, so to speak. And we weren't very smart about how we let them abuse and misuse that authority. So now we have government that's corporate, it's out of control. Yeah. It does not respect the rights of the individual. It gives lip service to the Constitution every now and then. And of course, your politicians will do this when it's time to get reelected, but day to day, they couldn't care less. They don't uphold their oaths. They don't care about the people. They're only interested in their own personal power, influence, control, and bank accounts. So we have to face it. We dropped the ball, and now we have to pick it up. We have to dust it off, and we have to start using it with authority. And the power of the law, the supreme law of the land, is our national constitution, which says right in the Constitution under Article 6, clauses 2 and 3, that the Constitution for the United States of America is the supreme law of the land. You know what supreme means, the absolute top, the best. That law of the land is superior to any other type of law, including state law, codes, regulations, statutes, the whole works. So all this nonsense that they've done, all the millions of statutes that they put on the book over the decades, most of which are anti or unconstitutional and pernicious to the rights of the people, all of those are not legitimate law. They're not valid. They're de facto law, just like the government in DC is de facto. And it has proven that it doesn't merit our respect or our obedience because it is not upholding its end of the bargain. There's a zillion, examples I could give you that I won't waste your time. You know what I'm talking about. And I'm sure many of you watchers and listeners do too. So, we're at a point in life where we have to say, what are we going to do? Are we going to live under this corporate fraud for the rest of our lives and continue to be slaves because that's what they want us to do? Or are we going to reclaim our rights and our sovereignty and bring our nation back under the original organic constitution that upholds our individual rights? And are we going to be responsible gatekeepers and make sure that whoever we put into office next does exactly what he or she is supposed to do, or we kick them out? Okay. We have to make that choice, and we have to exercise our rights because no one can do it for us.
Look, we have to take our country back because we've given it away.
Yeah.
As I mentioned before, and as Margie mentioned a little while ago, this experiment, this American experiment, had never been done anywhere in the known history of existence, anywhere. This was a real experiment. It was a spiritual experiment that got infiltrated. Okay.
Yes.
Now, again, we were supposed to be the shining beacon of light and freedom for the entire world. We were the ones who were supposed to remake the entire world. And we created the best, the greatest egalitarian document ever created by mankind for the rule of a nation by the people of the nation. It had never happened before in the history of existence. The power of government was placed in the hands of the people. But what did the people do? Well, we had a great philosopher, a great spiritual leader many 2,000 years ago, who was teaching all sorts of good things to all sorts of people and trying to awaken the people to reality and bring them over the top so they could express their own power spiritually and physically. And what did the people do? They spit in his face and crucified him. Okay? Well, what did the American people do to the American Constitution? The same damn thing. They spit in the face of the Constitution and they gave away their power to evil right away.
I think it also was programming and manipulation because these people.
It's always,
it's all of that. It's
programming. It's always programming, conditioning, and manipulation all the time. That's part of the governmental structure.
True.
Okay. But remember, and a lot of you people don't know this, America was founded by Jew money. Okay. Jew money. We've had a Jew influence in this country from the very beginning. And when the first president won the election, who was John Adams, he was a descendant of mine, okay, an ancestor of mine. He was not liked by the powers that be. He was not liked by the money. He was not liked by the King of England, who still had influence very strong in this country. Yeah. Okay. So there was a second electoral college vote, and all of a sudden, the Jew candidate, who was Washington, won.
He was a banker's boys.
And what did he do? He put in the first Jew-controlled central bank in this country in
Overseen by the
1791, okay, with the help of Hamilton and John Jay, okay, who was the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and other Jew supporters in Congress. And we've had a central bank in this country ever since, owned and controlled by the Jews. So we started out as the great beacon of freedom, but the people gave that freedom right away to the Jews. Now, I'm not talking the average Jew who owns a little store. I'm talking about the elite Jews who control the world, okay?
Yep. If you
Well,
guys have, I've actually seen these pictures of these Orthodox Jews with every single president, and the president is signing something as they stand behind him.
Yes,
So,
that's correct.
yeah.
They've had influence because they've had the money to control the power. When you own every central bank in the world, which they do, you own every government in the world, you own every country in the world, you own every court in the world, every police force in the world. You own the world. Why? Because people are whores. They sell themselves for money all the time. The girls walking the street are more honest than the whores in government. Okay?
True.
The whores in government will kill you. The girls will only do something else to you.
Well, that's
So I wanted to talk about the US citizen, because when you said this and when I first started learning this, I was blown away. But what you're saying is that an American citizen and a constitutionalist, we have unalienable rights from God. They weren't given to us by the government. The US citizen was created by the 14th Amendment, which gives them privileges, not rights.
That's right.
But privileges. So how does somebody revoke that? Because I do have a freedom school, and for myself, I've actually written to the state Secretary of State, telling her that I revoke, that I'm no longer a U.S. citizen, and also
were a U.S. citizen. See, that's the thing. You never were.
Never were.
Whatever the implication was in Section 1, it was not true. Okay, Americans on the land, born in this country, whether it's here or Hawaii, are American nationals. Okay, by birth, they are not U.S. citizens. There really is no such category. That's made up, right?
Correct.
So the implication there, when they do that, when they take the birth certificate, they hypothecate it and put all the names in uppercase letters, making everybody a corporate fiction, but they don't know it, the straw man, all of that stuff. None of that is lawful. It was all done in fraud. There was no disclosure to the people about what that meant and what the ramifications of those actions were. So in terms of law, valid law, all of those things are nullities. Fraud vitiates everything done under fraud. Okay, everything, every contract, every assumption vitiated by fraud. U.S. v. Throckmorton, very famous case. So all of the things that they superimposed upon the people are not real. It's like somebody puts a mask on you and paints a different color and calls you Susie Q instead of Michelle, but it's not you. You're Michelle, okay? But you got to know that. You have to know who you are. So you don't have to take away, oh, I'm not a U.S. citizen. You can notify people that you know that you are not and never have been, because there is no such categorization as a U.S. citizen. You are an American citizen, national, okay, on the land, and you shall remain so until you leave this plane and go someplace else, all right? It's very simple. Again, we tell people all the time, they have to know who they are. They have to know their own worth and their own power. Okay. And I said earlier that the reason the New World Order cannot go forward without America being killed, okay, is that people who know their own power do not submit to tyranny. They do not submit to fraud, and they do not allow themselves to be painted into a box that says that they're green when they're not green. Okay. So we have to claim our own personal power back again. This goes to spirituality. It goes to knowing that you are a spirit and a soul, having an experience in a physical body, your vehicle, but it's not who you really are. Okay. Well, that soul and spirit are transcendent, and they are free. They are sovereign.
Yes.
And that's what we were intended to be in this country, because our founders recognized that connection to the all it is.
Yes.
Intelligence. And this is where we dropped the ball, because we got so drawn into the material plane that we weren't paying attention to what was going on around us. And that precious freedom and sovereignty, that inherent infinite spirit, got diminished. It got dimmed. We weren't watching. So now we have to rev that flame up, and we have to claim our.
How do people do that? Is it, do they write to the Secretary of State and let
They
them
can,
know?
if they want to, they can
Okay.
write an affidavit to the Secretary of State. They don't have to, but they can.
Let me explain
Okay.
it this way, and let's go over a couple of things here, because unless you know the background a little bit, you won't know the present. All right. The original Constitution, as Margie said earlier, 1787, all right, amended with the Bill of Rights in 1791, gave all the rights and freedoms to the American people.
Recognized.
Due process of law, okay, all of the guaranteed rights were birthed in the American citizens. All right. Now, 1871 comes along. You had a Congress that declared the original Constitution essentially null and void. Well, wait a minute now. Null and void. All right. Because they created a new Constitution, changing some words, changing some terminology, and changing some actions that the people thought were valid. All right. That Congress had taken an oath to the original Constitution. Therefore, that Congress was required to uphold that original Constitution. But what did that Congress do? It created a new Constitution with a new type citizen, a new type of government, a new type of corporation. Therefore, that Congress committed treason.
Yes.
And treason is not a constitutional authorized activity. Therefore, whatever that treason created is lawfully null and void. Okay. Now, every Congress and every president since then, including Kennedy, Trump, all of them upheld that phony 1871 Constitution and that phony corporate status and that phony US citizen status upon the American people. Therefore, none of these governments, none of them, since that time, since 1871, had any lawful constitutional authority to exist, which is very important, and had no constitutional authority whatsoever to rule in America. We're dealing with treason from 1871 on. Now, if you go back to your original Constitution and you compare that to the new 1871 Constitution, and to the 14th Amendment, in which the people are theoretically US citizens, that was all created in treason.
Fraud and treason.
Fraud and treason are nullified, okay? They have no lawful existence. So if you go back to the original Constitution, and we've told this to, I don't know, thousands of people in the so-called freedom movement, the what is it called? No, the assembly movement. Okay, thousands over the years. Drop the U.S. citizen nonsense. Go back to your rights and authority under the original Constitution and state that declares you an American citizen. Okay, one of the people with all the rights guaranteed in the Constitution. And this phony Constitution and this phony amendment, 14th Amendment, that signified people as US citizens was done in fraud and treason. I'll say it again, and fraud and treason have no validity whatsoever.
So is there anything that, let's talk about taxes as well, because people have been asking me, how do I get out of the system? How do I get rid of my straw man? So I have, like I said, written to the U.S. Secretary and told them I'm not a U.S. citizen. I have gotten a passport, and it took me twice to actually send them a whole revocation of election. Well, that was actually, sorry, that was to the IRS, but I sent the to get my national passport. It's not even national passport because there's no difference between a national and a US citizen passport. They're actually the same, but it got denied like 3 times and I had to resubmit it and finally I got my my passport. But is there anything that you guys would say, because I did this before I met you, that actually gets people known to the system that they're not a U.S. citizen?
What I just explained and what Margie just explained is the reason. You base everything in the power and the authority of the original Constitution, in which you are an American citizen, one of the people, with all rights guaranteed to you, all due process guaranteed to you in that original Constitution. Okay? That did not take place in the 14th Amendment. That did not take place in the 1871 Constitution. Therefore, as I said, that amendment and that Constitution were conceived in fraud and treason. They have no validity whatsoever. You cannot recognize fraud and treason as having any validity. You can recognize the supreme law of the land as having of authenticity and legitimacy. Okay. So if you want to write a statement, a very brief statement along those lines, and submit it to anyone you want, that will solve that problem.
Yes, because you're claiming your inherent rights that are secured in that original Constitution. And the other Constitution is a nullity by and through the fact that it was fraudulently created. It was passed in treason by a Congress that had taken an oath to the original Constitution, had no lawful authority to do what they did. It was completely unnecessary. It was only done to bring in the corporatization of all of the other governments of this country and put everything under that blackened DC corporate umbrella. It's all about money and power, and taking the people off the land unwittingly and governing them unlawfully under maritime and admiralty law, as if we are vessels on the sea. And there's so much language out. We don't want to get into that. It'll take forever. But if you understand the gist of the straw man stuff, you know how that was done. The same thing with the birth certificate, all the other nonsense that they put people through. Yep. So if you want to do that, you want to predicate what you do in the power and authority of the original organic Constitution. That's your foundation. Okay.
Okay.
And when you do that, let's say you're writing to whomever, Secretary of State, doesn't matter. Those two positions, the original Constitution, okay, is solid, authentic, valid, enforceable. All right. The other position, the 14th Amendment, Article 1, and the phony Constitution are not. They were committed in fraud and treason. And the person you write to, you can make the statement to that person that you have no constitutional authority whatsoever, pursuant to your oath, to uphold fraud and treason as valid in contradiction to the supreme law of the land. Okay? Remember, the Constitution authorizes valid positions. All right. What is written in the Constitution is valid and enforceable. What is not written in the Constitution is invalid, unlawful, and unenforceable. And any public officer, any act by any public officer, whatever it may be, either supports and upholds the Constitution or opposes and violates it. Remember those two positions because they're very important. So that's what we would do, and that's what we have done.
So what about taxes? Okay, taxes, same thing.
If you did a revocation of election, and you can do it in many ways, we would suggest that people can do it simply by writing an affidavit and stating their reasons. I mean, let's face it, no one's told the truth about anything in this country.
That's true.
And, the ignorance of the people is what the government, the corporate
counts on.
They count on it and they use it against us. So if you're going to notify the IRS, you're going to let them know that you were denied the truth. It was fraud by omission that induced you to, first of all, sign a W-4 because you were told, well, you can't work if you don't have this, right? Okay.
And I was told that a W-4, the W stands for war, because this was back in when it was first created.
Way back in the day, yeah, because it was supposed to be temporary,
temporary, and voluntary.
Oh yeah, it is voluntary. It's still voluntary, and this is what people do not know. They can't. When someone says to you, you have to sign a W-4 and you have to file a 1040, well, wait a minute. This is a voluntary system. Why do I have to? I don't. There is no law. There's never been a law that says that any American citizen, American national, or state citizen, not state national, state citizen, that any of those entities, however they call themselves, is required to pay taxes. The only people in America, US America, who are required to pay federal taxes are people that work for the federal government or work in or at DC or any of the territories. Okay, foreign territories, because they're all foreign. DC is a foreign entity to the rest of the United States of America, to those of us on the land. So if you don't fit that description, you don't have any obligation to participate in the income tax scheme. So you were denied the truth, fraud by omission. And so you want to rescind the signature on the W-4 because it was procured through fraud. They counted on your ignorance that you would say, okay, go ahead, take my money that I worked so hard for. No, I don't think so. Then the revocation of election is your right because they told you you had to file this 1040 to report what you've earned and that you had to pay any additional taxes if they didn't take enough out. Well, that's not true either. You're not subject to income tax. So if you're not subject to it, then you're not liable to pay anything and you're not liable to report what you earn in exchange for your labor, skills, time, expertise. Okay. So you need to understand that you're right to revoke that election to pay, to file that tax form, and to rescind the signatures. Any and all signatures that you've signed on any other prior tax forms are rescinded because they were procured in fraud.
In fraud,
you know what I said? Fraud vitiates everything. It was a scam. It was a bag job, and there's no lawful authority for it. It's basically a con. We've all been
absolutely huge con.
For us to say no more. And the thing that people don't understand too, which for some people they may not know this, when you pay money for income tax, that money isn't going to help the federal government. It's not helping your state government.
It's not doing the roads.
Directly to the IMF and to the bankers, the central bankers who own the world. It's not fixing anything. They borrow money so they can do these things. That's why the debt never goes down.
Yeah.
The whole thing is nothing but a house of cards. It's a total Ponzi scheme. And the joke's on us because we didn't realize this. And I remember way back when Ronald Reagan was around, he wanted to know precisely how the IRS uses the money and where the money goes and this and that. And he had a study done called the Grace Report.
Yeah.
And was shocked to find out that none of the money that's paid into federal income tax goes to support any of the federal government's costs. None. Zero. Nada. Okay. This is really the scam of the century. That along with the Federal Reserve Bank.
The whole thing is a scam. It's all a scam. But getting back to this U.S. citizen situation, when we go to court, we have a status statement that we present to the court right away. Okay. And that status statement puts the court on notice that if the court does not object to what we say, that's how we appear before the court. And we say, we appear before this court as living, breathing, flesh and blood American citizens with our names lawfully spelled only in upper and lowercase letters, who claim and exercise our constitutional rights. We are not U.S. citizens. We are not vehicles. We are not corporations. We are not vessels, et cetera, et cetera. Takes us about a minute to say it, okay? And then we stop and we ask the confirming question. Does anyone object to anything we just stated? There has never been, in 72 years, there has never been any objection. Because they cannot call us U.S. citizens. They cannot call us corporations. We are not that, okay? We appear as living, breathing, flesh and blood American citizens on the soil, men and women on the soil. Now, if anyone's interested in that statement, they can go to our website, which is citizensoftheamericanconstitution.net, and go onto our constitutional court challenges. Constitutional court challenges. You'll see 1A, you'll see 1B, and then you'll see 2, which is that statement, okay? Go ahead. Did you want to say anything?
I love it. You guys, this is so amazing. So again, well, first, is there anything lastly you want to say? This has been exactly what, when I first learned this, I was floored. Well, first I cried for 3 days. I couldn't get out of bed. I cried for 3 days because I realized everything that I believed about this country was a complete lie. And that was really hard to take. And then I was like, what do we do? And at the time there was nothing to do, but now there's a lot to do.
Yeah.
So I just want to invite and encourage everybody, if your government, if your city council, if your county council is violating your rights, we have remedy. It is the affidavit that Margie and Jack have, an amazing template. Their website is going to be in the description. So please follow that.
And I would just add this. If you're living in this country and you're living under some form of government, which you think is government, but it's really corporate, then I guarantee you that there's some reason for you to write an affidavit to your so-called public officials.
Yeah.
So think about that, because what they're doing does not uphold the Constitution. That means it doesn't uphold their oath and it doesn't uphold your rights. They have no authority to violate your rights or to perjure their oaths. So you'll find something that you can do. This is a time for all Americans to stand up, to be unselfish, and know that the act of standing up will encourage others to stand up. And together we can unite and we can take our country back, because we
Yes.
have to. No one else will do it for us.
That's right.
The tax issue, the income tax issue, is a major issue. Do you know Michelle Moore? Are you familiar with her?
Yeah, that's how I found you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. If you talk to Michelle or go to Michelle, we have a plethora of information on her site regarding how people can stop paying income taxes. Okay. And more coming daily. All right. How they can stop paying income taxes, how they can stop paying property taxes. Now, I don't know how many people are going to do it. You know, if you have one or two people do it, you're dealing with pure evil. You know, you may be successful, you may not be successful. But if we had, let's say, 500,000 people doing something like this or more, we could
Game
make
over.
a major impact.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you want to get in touch with Michelle, I'm sure she'll send that information to you for your
Yes.
people.
Thank you so much for that. And for those of you on the radio, say your website again for me, Jack.
Website.
The website is citizensoftheamericanconstitution.net.
Yes. So be sure to go to that. Well, much mahalo again, as always. This has been so informative, and I'm really, really excited about this. I'm excited because how I live my life is I go ups and down with my emotions, but also I go, okay, Michelle, you found out about this. Now this is your kuleana to do it. You don't just find out about something because it's just good information to know. You find out about it, it comes to you because it's yours to do. So that's why I'm encouraging everybody who's listening to me, who's watching the videos, it's yours to do, because it can't be your children that does it, you know, or your grandchildren that aren't even born yet. Maybe you have to do it. And I actually would rather say we get to do this. We get to show our government leaders that we see you. We see who you are. We see the tyranny that you're doing, and we see the evil that is you, and you're out. You are out. And I'm so looking forward to getting to watch as things unfold, where our governor is peaceably removed from office or voluntarily steps down, where the Maui city councilor gets stepped down and gets removed from office, or the Maui mayor, and all of them get accountable, are accountable for their actions. The police chief of Maui, which there's astronomical evidence of his corruptness, and blocking people from leaving a fire is murder. And we get to watch as things unfold for them to be held accountable. That will happen. I know it in my heart of hearts. And I just want to say thank you so much to both of you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you for picking up this banner and running with it. And if the people of Hawaii and the people of America understand what happened at Lahaina, they can understand this can happen anywhere at any time, anywhere in America. Okay.
Absolutely.
And if the people actually get behind this, you can change Hawaii and possibly change America as well. So keep up the good work.
All right, you guys, let's do a quick prayer. Great Spirit, infinite intelligence of all things, you're beating our hearts right now. You're breathing our bodies. We're not plugged into the wall. I don't know how you're doing this, but you're doing this. You're moving the sun across the sky. You're guiding the honeybees to their flower. There is an infinite intelligence that we as humans can't even comprehend. And this game that we came to play together as evilness and light and dark, this whole game is for our emotionals, our spirit to have an emotional experience through a human body, moving back to love, moving back to courage, knowing that we are totally taken care of, that there really is no death, that we are always inspired to do what is ours to do. And I just give so much gratitude right now to Margie and Jack Flynn for the years, numerous years, and the giving. They're over and over and over of giving their time, of giving this information for free, of just helping so many people get out of what they are really afraid, which is this evil tyranny of a government. But it is over for these people. It is over for the corporation. They know the ending is near, and the ending is happening because of all of the people that are saying, yes, I step forward to take action. I step forward to write and do these affidavits and take my time to help free this country and bring back the organic original Constitution. And Great Spirit, we just know that this is done, and we get to watch as things unfold because of our actions, because of our courage to step forward together, unified, doing what is right, not what is easy, but what is right. And we get to watch as these demons leave office. We get to watch as the freedom, the feeling of freedom, the feeling of unity, the feeling of harmony and of peace invoke and just completely engulfs all of our bodies throughout the entire world. We know we are free. We know we are sovereign. We know all of our people, especially our children, are kept safe. Great Spirit, we just honor you. We just honor ourselves, and we just honor this game that we all chose to come play at this time in history. And we know freedom and peace are here around the planet. And so it is.
And so it is.
Viva.
Mahalo, you guys. See you next time. Much
Mahalo.
aloha.